Good. Morning.
We'll go through one of our residential properties with the process that's entailed for a review and appraisal of a residential property, and then I'll pull up one of our commercial properties, more detailed commercial properties here in town, and just kind of go through the whole process that we go through. As mentioned, we have 6 of us in the office. Did you guys go through any of my budget presentations? 92% of my budget is salaries and benefits
My
for the
house
staff
isn't
here.
on your list today, is it, Dusty?
Not today.
No.
Okay. Maybe tomorrow.
Okay. But 92% salary benefits, the remaining 8% goes in basically into our overhead costs for this space here, and then any appraisal packages or software that we have entails. So biggest tool we have is our appraisal software. It's by Vanguard, Real Property Appraisal. Cam Vision's their software package. They're an Iowa-based company, so everything. Have you guys ever done with replacement costs, new cost schedules, or Marshall Swift or anything like that? Before, probably in the banking industry, you guys use some of that. So the big one, you have CoreLogic, who bought out Marshall Swift. They have their own regional costs, basically nationwide cost manual. What Vanguard Appraisals offers is a one tailored to the Northwest. So we're looking at Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. And so we're able to fine tune in our cost manual, and then of course we here at City of Minot, we fine tune that even further based off of our sales for replacement costs new each year. So that's where we're at with that. We'll just kind of jump in right in front of you here. We have what our appraisers would normally have in front of them for a review, either here in paper or on a digital form. We use tablets as well. Some appraisers like using digital form, some want to use still old school using paper copy. But this is a property up on Ivory Street, it's the northwest part of Minot, north of the new high school. This property was built in 22 there, sold in 2022. So all the information that we have on hand, this is our quick sheet that we go to when we're out to a property owner. Usually gives us a name, address, legal description, just basic building information, some plumbing, garage, prior year evaluations, any recent sales, permits, and then our recent inspection history. And the big thing that we're looking for is basically our square footage and our drawing diagrams. So if this were a new construction, we're going to be out there usually during the framing inspection to get our measurements, so we're not bothering any of the property owners at that time. We work closely with contractors at that, and at the final inspection, so we have basically updated details on a property. If this was in our review area, which we have multiple review areas every single year, we do about 1,500 properties a year, residential reviews. We send letters out to those property owners every single year, request an inspection. If we don't get an inspection, we'll just basically go off of the information that we have here and do an exterior review of the property.
What percentage of actual letters do you guys get responses from?
Responses on? So right now I'm tracking for our current inspection for our review areas, we're about 33% right now. And then on top of what we do for our review areas, we do sales verifications. So if you sell your property, if there's a deed transfer, we send a letter out asking for an inspection and review to make sure our information is correct. Because touching back on the sales, in order for us to have the most accurate data and to adjust our values for every single other property in Minot, we need to make sure our sales data is accurate. Because if I'm basing everything solely off of just the estimates of value, that means then we start seeing skews. So garbage in, garbage out. It's the simplest way to put it in database management. And then on our review areas, we're about sales about 25% of our sales letters we get into properties. We have other avenues to verify our information, whether it be MLS, aerial imagery, we use that.
So the 1,500 that you're doing,
mm-hmm.
What does that work out to for percentage? I guess really I'm looking for the cycle. How often are we hitting each property?
We try to so let's just use your property for instance. We'll try to review your property once every 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
That way we're keeping up on if there's any improvements to property or just making sure that our data is accurate as it can be. So we go through, as I mentioned, about 30 to 33% on our review areas. It really depends on the neighborhood. This year we're doing a lot of the tower condos. We're doing Southwood on the southeast part of town, and then Ramstead up by Ramstead. Some of the newer stuff's built after 2010. We've had a pretty decent response rate there. Last year we did the northeast part of town there. I think we were about 25% inspection rate for a letter, so 1 out of every 4 calls in for an appointment. So it really depends on the neighborhood and the part of town that we're in. And the sales consistently is that 25 to 27% of property owners are calling for a review. So if we were going out using this property for a review, because it is in our review area this year, this is what the appraiser would have on if they call for an inspection, they take this with them. If they were just doing basically walking the street, leaving a door hanger is our other option. We go through to try to get in contact with property owners. They'd have this with them. So if we're going through an inspection, we visit with the property owner. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes. We literally ask them just for a quick walk through the property. We want to verify that our quality and condition is the biggest thing. The simplest way I like to put it is you usually can buy all your building supplies from Menards, or you can actually go to Minot Builders or Home Depot, a little bit higher quality of products, and those are the type of things we're looking for in a property. Your personal property, we don't care about on that. We're looking, do you have solid core doors, or are they hollow core doors? Softwood, hardwood, trim, what type of flooring? What's the condition of that flooring, or those coverings, countertops, that overall condition and quality of the property, because that right there, that individual opinion that assessment official makes is a real large derivative of value. And then on top, that goes into the square footage too. So we're out there verifying that our measurements are accurate with our square footage. So they'll be out there, visit with the property owner, do a quick walk through the property, 5 to 10 minutes. Then they'll go through and then verify the measurements of the property. Once they have that information collected, they're going to usually answer any questions the property owner has at that time. We do a lot of, I want to say sales pitch, but sales pitching for homestead credit, disabled veteran credits, anything that somebody can qualify for the state to pay some tax burden. So that is kind of our follow-up question in our review with property owners. Once we've gone through that, we'll update a photo, and that right there is about 30 minutes. It'll hold the time between your travel time, actual inspection, and then to completion of inspection, moving on to the next property. So about 30 minutes for an on-site inspection, time for us with our staff, and then we come back to the office, and that's where we actually start doing a data entry on the property. So I'll pull up the first one here and just kind of give you a rundown of what we go through. So here's our property. We got 2528 Ivory Street, Minot. Just our basic general information, ownership, address, basically what we call map factor is a neighborhood factor, because every single neighborhood in Minot isn't valued the same. A property in northwest Minot is going to be different than a property in southeast Minot. A property on the north side of the river is going to be different than a property on the south side of the river in the floodplain. So based off sales data, we're able to fine tune those individual neighborhoods each year. Just some local information in which tax district, municipality to go through. We got our legal descriptions, which keep there, our inspection history as we go through on the property. We can pull up here. We look since 2018 when it was basically first platted into a lot. We had an inspection there. We can go through in 2022. We had it measured. 22 inspected again, and then it was estimated off of a sales letter in 23. So we have a detailed history of what assessor's been to the property based off of the initials there and what happened at that time. So when a property owner comes and says, well, I just met with the assessor 2 years ago, we know exactly why we were there at the property. We keep notes of the property, just basic information, if it's MLS, what it's listing for, ordinances change, anything that's related to the property, and then just some quick inspection notes of the property, whether it be off of a permit or off of a sales letter. We keep track of detailed history of the sales of the property. This property, as I mentioned, sold in December of 2022 for $270,000. At that time, we had $15,000 because in 2022, beginning of that in February, it was a vacant lot. So we value as of February 1st is our appraisal date for all of our properties. So when we go through all of our sales, we have to, of about the 1,300 sales that we have every year in the city, we have to go through and verify the sales, whether they're a normal arm's length transaction. So this one here is a sale of a completed structure which we had a partial assessment, was just a land valuation on it. And so that's not considered a normal arm's length transaction for the state, so we're not going to use that in our sales ratio study. We're going to use it internally because I actually have a sale of a new construction now, which is huge. When we look at adjusting cost manuals, we need our sales of new construction to adjust cost manuals. So overall, in the big picture for the state doesn't use this sale for their annual sales ratio study. We use it internally to adjust our model, our CAMA model. We got permit history. Some of these you can have one. I got an appeal with the state for Dakota Square Mall is 169 permits, so it depends on where you're at. You got a whole complete history to go through. We break it down into a land valuation. Most of our properties in the city are valued on two bases, either a lump sum or a square foot base. Lump sum, if you get in some of these neighborhoods that when we look at the sales, that it doesn't matter. It could be a 5,000 square foot lot or 7,000 square foot lot, if they're both selling for $30,000, we're going to use a lump sum basis. When we start seeing deviations in the market based off sales, where you start seeing that variance in the sale price because you have a larger or smaller lot, then we're going to start using a square foot rate. As part of town, $7.50 a square foot brings into a land valuation of $38,000. Then we get in the meat and bones of this residential property. As I mentioned, we go through all the property characteristics, whether year built, the type, 1-story, 2-story. We have some 3 stories, manufactured home, split levels, the construction type, frame, brick, block, earth home. We're looking at our total square footage. This total square footage is what we're for our main area is what we're pulling off of our sketch right here of the property. So when the appraiser's out the property, they're doing hand notes, verifying the sketch. If there's a new property, they're going to go through and they're going to actually detail draw out the sketch of the property and enter it into a system, because that's what gets populated not only on our property records, but out onto our assessor website for the public, which is used primarily by banks, realtors, fee appraisers, and just general public in total.
So is that the foundation footprint?
That is the foundation footprint, correct.
Okay. And so it's not an above ground, it's not dealing with a split level a different way, it's gonna use the foundation as the basis for it?
For this property, yes.
Okay.
If it was a split level, we're gonna have, basically you're gonna have your foundation plan, and then if I go back here to my style, I could have a split level here. I'm gonna put that in, it's gonna ask for a number of stories and go off of that. If it's a 2-story home, we're gonna have the foundation plan as a 2-story home, but then that main area, that total living area is gonna double if it was the same size. There are properties where you'll get, we're here, and then the foundation, they do an addition later on, so we'll pick up the addition. We'll value that on a different year because it's built a different year, because it's gonna have a different depreciation and different cost to it. So these are the type of things we pick up, as I mentioned, the foundation, any decks, patios, the garage, and then any covered porches or entries. Anything that's got some sort of a foundation system to it is what we're going to pick up in our drawings. As I mentioned, we go through type of property, square footage. This is where we come into the grade or multiplier. This is our adjustment to our cost manuals. This property here, this is showing that we're at basically 134% of our cost manual. Our cost manual was last generated in 2020. So since then, based off our local market, this style of home, this quality of home, drive-by market is driving a cost of about 134% above what our 2020 manual cost manual is attributing to the property. Then we get into I would say our biggest influence on properties from a year-to-year basis is the condition of our property. You can value property anywhere from a very poor up to an excellent. New construction, when you baseline, when you build a home, that's a normal condition property. As properties start depreciating, start deteriorating, property owners don't start replacing normal fixtures, roofing, siding, windows, and all of that. We start seeing properties depreciate, and that's where we adjust for our depreciation. When we do exterior reviews, all we can see is the outside.
So if I let my home decline, you guys are gonna assess it at a lower value, is that correct? I mean, that just...
Yeah, yes, in essence, yes. So if we're going, when we go through our reviewers, that's like I said, we go every 5 to 6 years, we start seeing that down cycle or up cycle of properties.
Right.
We make those adjustments. So if we have a property that was in a normal condition this year, we come back in 5 to 6 years, and we come back and we're starting to see, and we have broken windows, we got cracked siding, siding starts fading, starting seeing some heaving on the concrete outside, or just different aspects from an exterior view. We're probably gonna make some adjustments. The real question is does the exterior of the property represent the interior of the property? Because a lot of time people can put on some new siding and a new roof, but the interior can be totally different, and that does
on a pig, right?
Yes, but and it's tough for us to justify a value, to say yes, that property is worth XYZ value when all we've done is an exterior of the property. A lot of times that's, I'd say, probably 8 out of 10 of our appeals, and when we get informal appeals, people calling in, it's most likely because they've done something in the exterior that we've kept a condition at a normal or above normal, but the interior it's depreciated out, and we need to make an adjustment. We go through, we do those inspections, and we send those corrections through to the county, because if it's something that's physically not there or the property is physically deteriorated, our goal is to be at as close as we can to market value, and so ultimately that's our goal, our achievement there. We go in and we determine what type of basement foundation. This one's on a crawl space, so this one doesn't have a basement in there. We go into basically their heating systems, cooling systems, if there's attic, our architectural styles. We've also started tracking in our system the builder, because we start seeing that with different builders in town, different quality. So if I pull up a Four Seasons home, I know that most of those, all those 2020 to 2024 built homes, they're going to be the same quality. So as a multiplier is like the quality of the property. And so we want consistency is the biggest thing, because I don't want to go down 2 houses down the next street and see this house valued differently. We're looking for equalizing and similarities across in our assessments. Now we go in basically into our interior finishes. We're talking foundation, exterior walls, roof type, interior finish, flooring, bathroom counts, and then also bedrooms and living area. Then if we had any basement finish, we'd pick up basically for basement finish on the property. This is another attribute if we get into properties. If we have to estimate a property, if the majority of the properties in your neighborhood have a basement finish, we're going to add a basement finish to the property. If you don't have basement finish, that's when we want to know, and we want to remove that value so you're not being assessed on basement finish that you don't have. But everything we do in our determination of value is based off of market. Fireplaces, we pick those up as well. Anything that's built into the property. In essence, anything that's in the property, if you were to remove it out of the property and left a hole, that's what we're going to value. Exterior, as we mentioned in our drawing, you can look here, we have a wood deck and a covered entry. We're picking up those for valuation, entering those in. And then if we had any extra items, if we have any swimming pools, we got some basketball courts out there, just different items that we have in the city. This property in the future were to put on an addition, we're able to go here, add an addition, change the year, and it would value it based off of the depreciation for that year, not necessarily the year that the overall structure was built. And then garage, again, we can determine whether it's attached, detached, put a square footage in there, again, determine quality and condition of the property, and then any interior finishes, including heat, insulation, cabinetry, anything that attributes to a value of the property and whole. So once we're done there, that's basically our data entry. We're going to upload our photos. We have a chronological history of any time we're into the property. So we keep track of properties as they move through. We have some 1950s homes where we have 1950s pictures we've uploaded, as you can see through as properties change throughout. But here's the most recent one. This is what gets uploaded to our website. This is what your realtors, your fee appraisers, your bankers, the public will see as the most current picture of the property. Once we're all said and done, our manual contributes to a value. So as you can see, we're valuing this property at $254,000. That's our current value based off our current model. We want to then make sure that that's in line with the market. What are sales? Is that falling in line and within 10% of what sales have happened? So we do have a sales comparison we do run on our properties. Market, I'll just pull 5, and then I want good sales. I'll just run anything since we're looking at last year's from 2023 to today. And I have my results. 5 properties. What's up in a nice report. So I got 5 sales here. The subject property is always on the left side of any of our sales comparisons, and then we have our comparable properties. In a sales comparison approach to value, we're always making adjustments to the comparables and not the subjects. We want to make the comparable match the subject property. So you're going to have additions and subtractions, whether it be square footage of land, square footage of structure, quality, condition, or any additions to the property. So for instance, we have this one here, sold in August of 23 for $263. We make adjustments to that property based off of, as you can see here, we have an addition for bathroom fixtures, addition of value for square footage for the decks, and then also grade based off the size of the property. And then see here our indicated value for basically our sales comparison. We say this property would be, our subject property would be worth $266,000 compared to that sale. We follow through. We got another sale here from August 23, sold for $267,000. Again, we do our net adjustments, $269,000. Come through some more sales. We have quite a few sales of these type of properties because it's up in that area. 261 in January 23, another one 264 January 23, and the last one here of October of 23 for 289. So when we start looking at our adjusted values, we're looking here at the bottom, indicated value, most of them range right in that 250 to 260 range. Our current assessment on the property is 254 when we round up, so we're within that 10% of market value. As a city as a whole, as all of our properties, our goal is 94% of market. That allows us to make sure that we're not exceeding market valuation on our assessments as a whole, but we're not falling short of the state required 90%. 94% is also where the county sets their valuations at. If the city of Minot were to assess, say, at 97% and the county was at 94%, you're going to see a heavier burden of that county levy pushed on city properties, or vice versa. If the city was basically lowering their valuations to, say, that 91, 92%, and the county was doing a higher valuation, county properties are going to see a higher burden on the tax rate. And so valuations as a whole come through the different boards of appeal. In April, we had the City Board of Equalization. That's the first step for property owners to make a formal appeal, and then it moves on to the county board and then on to the state board.
So the county's doing their own assessments? Is that?
Yep, the Director of Equalization oversees all the assessments in the county, but then that office does, I believe, all but 1 or 2 townships in the rest of the county.
Okay, so am I catching that wrong? Do you mean that they would assess the same property? Or
No.
they would, okay, so
No.
they're doing just outside of town?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. So touching back here, as I mentioned, our proposed right now 2025 valuation as we sit with our current manual is going to be at $254,000 for the property. See, that puts us right in the middle between 250 to 265. I think 269. We had 280 on one there. It puts us within 10% of market value. So as our individual appraisers, they're looking at this property, they'd feel comfortable saying that what we have on there is a fair estimate of market value for that property for the next year. So that's just kind of the whole overall gist of what it would take for one property. As I mentioned, about 30 minutes on site, and then probably another 30 to 40 minutes in office if they actually had to go through and enter all this data for a property.
It's an impressive program.
It's a lot to do, and that's just the front end there. Gray book there is actually our cost manual. That basically goes into the different cost tables, depreciation tables. As I mentioned, sales is our biggest aspect in this office, because if I don't have good sales data, I'm not going to have good valuations. And so we do our best to confirm that sales data. And then at the end of the year, we do overall, basically we adjust our cost manuals, our actual tables inside here. And that's based off different sales. We break it down into neighborhoods, we break it down into year built, we break it down into the style of the home, quality, condition of the home, different grades. And so there's a lot more behind the scenes work that goes into it than just the overall data entry of the property.
So for the sales data, do you have an MLS feed?
We do, and and so that's another avenue. That's the next step actually I have here, so I'll log back in, but when we don't have inspection of the property, and if it was listed on MLS, we will use MLS to verify our information, but we will not make assessment. We'll use it to verify our information, but we won't make it to make an overall opinion of value. So if I go on MLS, I pull up a property, and it's showing that it's sold, say, March of this year, and it does not have basement finish in there, our assessments show we have basement finish, we are going to remove that basement finish on it, because that physical evidence showing that there's something in the property that's not there. The overall quality and condition of property, we won't make that adjustment until we actually have eyes on, because a lot of you can see, you start looking, scrolling through Zillow, Realtor, there's a lot of doctoring of photos out there too. People add stuff in to make properties look a little bit better on the appealing side on the photos, and so we're not going to take that to heart. We're going to actually verify our information. But yeah, I'll just pull up here some new listings I pulled up here. So let's just do. Here's one. So this is our basic information that we get from MLS. We have an associate's license with them, so we have the full data that the realtors are seeing, any documents they upload. It provides us basically with just overall photos of the property and any information. I'd say with confidence, 99% of the time, the information they're pulling off here is coming directly from our website, our assessment data. But yes, so Mr. Blessing, just to confirm, yeah, so this is our other avenue of verifying. For commercial properties, we're using LoopNet. LoopNet's a pretty good source there for whether it be lease rates, commercial properties that are for sale. We also look out BizMan. People post properties on BizMan. They're out there. We look at that information on a weekly basis to update our records. Not necessarily to see what the individual characteristics of the property are, but just to take a look at what they're asking for, what the sale prices that are happening, because that's what we're tracking. We're tracking market on a weekly basis to make our adjustments.
So the sales that you have in your system, are they being keyed based on information you pull here, or do you have a feed that's coming from MLS?
We keyed it based off of what's here. So I'll pull up this one. Last parcel there. As I mentioned, we keep notes. This one was MLS, was for 259 under construction on the 6th, basically June of last year, and then in October it was on MLS again, 259 under construction. So that's what we're tracking on MLS for that coming in. Sales themselves, that's a weekly process. Any deed that gets recorded in the recorder's office, we get a copy of that. And we update that because not only are we looking at sales, we're lost ownership changes.
Right.
Property comes in, has an ownership change, we have to update our records. We also, that allows us to track if a property went from a tax exempt status to a taxable status or vice versa. We make those adjustments. If a property has a homestead credit on or a disabled veteran credit or needs one because they had one, we can make those adjustments at the time too. So.
So do you guys track trends? Do you? I guess the thought that comes to my mind is as you're doing this day by day by day, there's a lot of information that's being generated, and I love data. So, I mean, I think of it as, are you seeing a trend that, hey, we've done 140 in the last week, and those 140 on average are 6% higher than their prior assessment. Are you tracking that so you always have a feel for your trends and where it's going?
So, at the end of the year, yes, as a consensus as a whole, if I wanted that data right now, yeah, I could go in and run a report and pull that data. Yeah.
And the reason I asked that, and it kind of goes back to what I was getting at before. So we're doing them every 5 to 6 years on average, which means you're hitting, say, 15 to 20% per year. Mm-hmm. So in a year like this, Harold, where you bring us a budget that's lowering the mills by 5, we should, I mean, theoretically, if you take it as a whole, 80% of the people should see their bills go down because their assessment hasn't changed. But about 15 to 20%, the assessment may have changed enough to offset the mill change. And that's where I get into what's the percentage change and all the pieces that are going with that. So
assessments change yearly.
For everybody.
Everybody.
What we did with the budget is we come down and talk to Ryan and say, overall, do you expect assessed values over the entire community, both residential and commercial, to go up or down? And he, like this last year, in preparing the 2025 budget, he said, we're seeing an average of about a 3% increase.
Okay.
So what we did is Dave and I go and we adjust the values of the properties up 3% as we prepare the budget.
Yep.
And then we use that to calculate off the mill levy. So for example, I heard talking on the Dakota the other day of, well, yeah, the mill levy's going down, but we still have to wait to see what the appraised values are going to do. No, that's already built in. We already built in a 3% increase in appraised values across the community.
So that's being accounted for when you guys budget.
It's accounted for when we build the budget.
So that is the baseline though, so that does still leave what I'm asking, which is the ones that were actually updated could be higher, right? So there should be a band of them.
Well, the challenge will be is the average is 3%.
Yep.
Right, and so you'll have some properties that don't change in value at all, which
Right.
will see a bigger decrease in tax burden.
Yep.
You'll have other properties that may have gone up by 6 or 10%. They will see an increase because their value has increased more. But
Yep.
on average, assuming that 3% increase across the board, if you're in that average or below, based on how we close the budget, you should see a decrease in your property
Yep.
tax bill.
And even, am I thinking of the numbers right? Even, so let's say that it was an average of 3, there should be a band even slightly above 3 because the mills went down? Or is that because that's already built in, that already takes care of that? Sorry,
Mike. Take care of it.
I think it does, yeah, now that I say it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you gentlemen weren't here for the Board of Equalization, but just shy of 15% of properties in mine, I got a notice of increase. So notice of increases are triggered when you go up 10% and 3,000. So at least 15% of the properties went up at least 10% in value this last year. To answer your question, Mr. Blessum, yes, properties change yearly. So just because we aren't at the property doesn't mean we're not going to adjust for market. Because you can see this one here, it's built in 22, sold in 23 for that 270 or 251. We had a couple sales for 23. We lowered our, as you see, we had land rates. We lowered the land value on this property. Dwelling value went up just a little bit based off the cost, and so the actual value went down this year.
So
Now,
I'm sorry, Ryan, I
Yeah.
don't mean to interrupt. Can I ask real quick, why would the land value decrease on this property? Just give me an example.
so this property, for instance, we had there's multiple lots being developed up there, and so in 2023, we saw that lots were selling for, like I said, $30,000. I think I mentioned that earlier, but $30,000 a lot is what they were going for.
Okay.
And that was basically turnkey lots ready to put a house on. So that's why we determined to lower the valuation. Yep.
Okay.
Now next year, if this year, and then we start seeing turnkey lots start increasing, we're going to increase land values to adjust for that. So
And so you're hitting them all, and it's, so are they adjusting based on factors that you're doing that apply across the board or to areas? Or do you have to go in and touch each property in the software at least?
nope. So I can mass adjust properties.
So you
Okay.
could go in like
So you-
Harold was
Yeah.
saying,
So
say
you-
3% up and everything shows an increase of 3%.
If we wanted to do,
Right.
if we wanted to trend, that's I would say the archaic ways. That's
Right,
literally
right.
when I started doing appraisals for the county back in 2012. We literally sat there. It was 2%. Everybody got 2%. 10%. Everybody got 10%. But what that does is a one-story home isn't valued the same as a two-story home. A 1970s home down by the river is not the same value as a home out in the golf course out there. So when you trend values, you start seeing your assessment starts getting skewed. Coefficients, dispersions, price-related differentials start skewing. So to make our adjustments, yes, I go in. I'll just show you a couple of our tables here.
So I suspect the public doesn't understand that every property can and likely will get adjusted slightly per year. I think they think of it as, oh, I got my notice every 5 years or whatever. I would think, I guess that was before we sat down. Right now, that's what I would have thought. So
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yep. So as I mentioned, neighborhoods. Just talking different part of towns, we have 54 different neighborhood factors, and so this is a multiplier. And so when I talk about a multiplier, it goes to our cost. So we're multipliers for our quality and condition, but then there's a multiplier for the location. So this is a location, like a location multiplier. So we'll take our sales and determine basically what needs to be put in, determine what the ratio is for those properties. If that neighborhood, just based on that neighborhood, sales are trending up in a neighborhood, we can adjust for our neighborhood if we need it to be. Most of the time, it's actually getting into basically our cost tables. Here's our 1.5 to 2 story cost tables, 1 story, and then our depreciation schedules. This is the one, as I mentioned, 15% of the properties in Minot went over 10%, but our average was 3%. It was our 1980s. I'll show it up right here. Basically, our 1980s all the way up to our early 2000s. I had to increase our depreciation, slow down our depreciation about 10% on those properties because your 1980s built homes were selling for 10-15% higher than what we had assessed on them. So in order for me to accommodate for that, we do basically a depreciation study and each year determine whether or not our depreciation is keeping up with the market too.
So that would point to what, being underbuilt a little bit right now? I mean, there's just more demand for those than there really ought to be if we had enough new coming on the market?
That could be definitely an influence there. We can adjust our depreciation tables. We can also, depreciation goes into our quality of home. So we're starting to see your 1940s to your 2000 built homes, a lot more remodeling's happened. Those that had money to invest in their home have invested in their homes. And so that's where you start seeing that too, that the reinvestment into the property, that slows down your depreciation on a home. And so it's making those
Can
adjustments.
you go back one screen for
Yeah.
me? I just was gonna ask you on the map.
Oh, the maps, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, where it showed like the different areas of town. Sorry,
Yep.
there you go. How is that map factor determined? And maybe you said it and I missed
Mhm.
it. So
that map factor is determined overall when we start an evaluation. So and I'm getting into the weeds here. So we did an individual appraisal here.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into manual adjustments, which I do starting in November. We start with the land. We want to make sure our base value on the land is correct. Then we start with depreciation.
Okay.
Then we start into cost manual level for the properties, basically our cost table. And then we get into location. That's the fourth adjustment we do to properties. So once I've already done everything for depreciation, the cost, if I still have properties in certain parts of town that are showing that say they're at 101% of market value and I need to lower them, I can go in and adjust a whole neighborhood here from that adjustment.
Okay.
So this is a location factor.
Right.
So
So
this is,
some areas are gonna assess higher.
Yep.
Because it's in this area.
Yep.
And what I'm asking is how does the computer come to that number for you guys, or how is it a?
I make that
Okay.
I make that adjustment based off the data that we collect and review in our sales. So our CAMA system, our program here, assists with providing that data to us, but ultimately it has to be a human to make that decision of where a value needs to be set. Yeah, we could just let the computer run wild and it'll do its thing on that, but that doesn't mean that there's not individual factors that go in, because I may have sales in it. I'm going to use northeast part of town. I may have sales down in certain portions of the northeast part of town where it's saying that we're really low on our valuation, but looking at those properties down there and I start actually doing individual sales comparisons, like I showed you with that parcel, we go into individual parcels and I'm showing I'm in line, it means I got some skewed data there, so I'm going to make that adjustment to say, no, I'm not going to go and increase the total area by 20% based off of one or two bad sales that we had on it. So it does take some individual knowledge and judgment into the properties. In those map areas, you want, just for reference, here's our city map, but different portions of town are basically broken up into different map areas. And we segment those. Those are because we have enough parcel count or sales in those areas to make that determination, make an adjustment for those areas.
So do those change yearly?
They do.
They do.
They do. The table changes. There may be some areas that don't change.
Right.
It may stay, like Arrowhead up here may stay at 98. That location adjustment may be 98% of the replacement cost new of the property, less depreciation. Next year, I may come in at maybe 98 again, or it could be 99. Go up 101, go down to 80. Don't know until I have a full year's of sales data that's available. So yeah, it's kind of, I got tables upon tables of information, and then even residential, as I mentioned, we got basically cost manuals, which everything in this binder, all the pages are basically digitized on here, so we can make those adjustments. So we don't have to individually touch every single property each year. We can make those mass adjustments. Hence why they call it mass appraisal. If we were doing an independent fee, basically a single property appraisal, you would be making those individual adjustments to each property every single year. Like if you were to purchase a home, bank appraisal, refinance on a property. But
I'll stay here. This is one of those areas that we protect the process and we deal with the results that come out of the process.
yeah.
I never go to Ryan and say, hey, I want to hold the line on the property tax mill levy this year, but I still need revenue from property tax, so I need a 7% increase in assessed values to make that work. I never do that. It's always the process is protected, the values are what the values are, and we deal with those values on what they are. And then we let the council decide whether or not they're going to raise, lower, or hold property tax to get the revenues that we need to operate.
On that note, yeah, Harold mentioned there, I could go in and go into my manual, cut every single property in half and value in half. It's going to do two things. Taxes are going to stay the same as long as the budget's the same on it. And second, the state's going to come and say you're out of compliance and raise you back up anyways on it. State gives us a 10% deviation. They say on all your properties you can be within 90 to 100% of market value. So when we take all of our sales for residential and all of our sales for commercial, when we report those into the state where we're at for valuations from this year to next year, it has to be within that 10% of market value. There are individual properties we're going to be off. You're going to have outliers. Anytime when you're dealing with 18,000 properties, you're always going to have some outliers there. Those are the ones that 9 out of 10 times we get the phone calls on. We go out, review the property, and we make the adjustments.
How do they determine that you're within 10%?
So they take last year's value, this year's value that we propose, and then they take the actual sales of properties. So then they take, I can pull up the report.
So they actually kind of do the same thing
Yes.
you guys do?
Yeah, I'll grab the print off
Okay.
here. So when they take a look at our properties, they take last year's value. I'll just use residential. Last year's value, this year's value. Our starting percentage, we were at 91.3% market overall. All of our properties, when I took the sale price compared to our assessments, our our median sales ratio was at 91.3. We subtract out any new construction because we don't want to include that because we want to compare apples to apples. We want to compare what existing properties to existing properties. After we made, like I mentioned, about 3% or 3% increase in valuation, we're at 94.1% for residential, 94% for our commercial. Same is done with commercial. Start with last year's value, overall value, this year's overall value, based off of where that sales ratio median value comes in. That's how we have to. The state justifies our adjustments. So if my sales ratio for residential came in at 101%, that means that my overall value, the state would mandate that we need to decrease, which obviously we're going to see that in the market already. We're going to make those adjustments on it. And so we're going to decrease it, and this value here, our true and full market value for the state, has to be within that 90 to 100%. And so if we're over the 100%, the state's going to drop you down to 97%. If you're under that 90%, they're going to bring you up to 97%. So that's the one aspect of it.
So that's their idea, is 97%?
Yes, it depends on each year with the board. Some years they've done 93. The last couple of years it's been 97, 95. It depends on where the board, which the state board is made up of the governor, state tax commissioner, state auditor, state treasurer, and the state aid commissioner. That's actually in 2 weeks we'll be going down for our state board to uphold our values there. But so yes, the state macro manages. We do there. I would say we micromanage then on an internal aspect of it, because the last thing I want to do is to go to the state board, have you guys already started working on a budget, have values already set on it, already gone to the city board, the county board, and come to the state board, and they come in and say, no, you got to increase your values or decrease your values. That screws everything up that we've done for the last 3 to 4 months. This is up. Sales ratios is what I track on a monthly basis, but at the end of the year is when we have to report all of our normal arm's length transactions to the state.
So in essence, if you want to decrease assessed values, everyone needs to start selling their property for less.
Yeah.
Because that's what drives that.
So I know I've gone over my time here, but if you guys got a couple more minutes, I'll just wrap up here. So we use Paragon, basically is the MLS system that's out there. We use Endrin, which is access to all the recorded documents. So I'm gonna go. Basically, we can pull Ward County here. I'm gonna go back to my parcel. Okay. So we have shared access in order to cut down on costs because it's $30 a month for it. So we have an office access, which everybody in the office I think is in that on a daily basis. So with every sale, every deed transfer, there's a document recording number. So yeah, gonna kick me out too. There it is. And so anything that's recorded with the county over there, we have access to view those documents, so we're not having to request all that information. It saves us a lot of time and a lot of hassle. It allows us to go through then and verify, because sometimes there's been times where we'll get a copy, because we get a paper copy from the county, but it may be a 13-page deed and they may only have 2 pages on it. And what we're doing on the warranty deed, we're verifying the ownership change, we're making those adjustments, verifying the legal description, and then the statement of certification for the full consideration of the property paid. That is basically their documentation stating that they paid XYZ for the property. Another aspect we use in our assessments, not only MLS, on-site inspections, but is aerial imagery. Lance has this up for the budget this year. This is pictometry, eagle view. This is a 2020 imagery. About every 5 years is when we get the imagery. It allows us, here's the hospital. That was the other property I was going to go through with you here if we had time, but we're able to, this is 3-inch imagery, so its accuracy is within 3 inches. We're able to measure, I wanted to know the length from here to here. I'm able to measure there. I got 528.6 feet. I can do height of a building too. We collect LiDAR data on the engineering side. They use that. This allows me so they have ortho and oblique. Oblique is the side imagery that we have here because you can see the sides of the building. And then if you zoom out, we get a 360-degree view here of a property. You zoom out enough, you can get to an ortho view, eventually an over-the-top view, and then zoom in.
So that imagery is crazy expensive, right? Because that was one thing, like when we were looking at I think it was the Moose Lodge, the flood purchase over there. I was thinking, oh, why isn't it updated? Like, I'd want to see this, this, and this, so that makes sense, because it's
Yeah.
nuts. It's,
Yeah,
that's why you only do it about every 5 years.
Every 5 years.
Yeah. Because it'd be great to have everything updated all the time, but that's just not feasible. So.
Google can't even do it.
Right, well, but that's the part that's kind of sad, actually, because what I find myself doing is looking at the parcel viewer and using that to determine where the lines are, and then looking at Google, because usually they're a little in front of the lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway, I gotta run over there, I'll be back as
Yeah.
fast as I can. Where do you think you'll be? Half hour, probably?
Half hour will probably be
9:30.
probably upstairs talking economic development.
Okay, sounds good. All right, I'll see you guys in bed.
But yeah, and then we have a parcel viewer. Everything out there we can link into. You can go to your tax. You click on a property. You can go to the plat if it's uploaded. You got the tax statement, and then you can go right to our property website. This property, yeah, over there is in a reviewer, southeast part of town. We have our current valuation on there. Almost everything you see in that property record that we just went through is on our website. Not this meeting, but the second meeting in August, you'll have a request from me. Our contract is expired with them, so we need to update our website contract. With that comes some improvements to the with our website, and it's actually for a lower cost that we got than what we're paying right now. So, yeah, we're doing what I can. We got some additional features. So right now, all you have is a picture. You have some basic details of the property, some sales information, and then a sketch of the property. What we're going to go to, I'll show you what West Fargo's doing, which we're going to do better than West Fargo even then. Let's just do Costco. We're going to have property here, information, continue to go down. We're going to have some more extra items on it. Our building permit information added into there. We're going to sketch of the property, but then we're also going to have a link right into our GIS map. So working with Lance out there, his engineering department, we're going to have right into our GIS map, which is actually going to allow people to, there's going to be some extra tools up here. If you want to do a sales search, you just say between January 1st to January 1st, I want to know all the sales in this part of the neighborhood. It'll populate it up on the map for you. So if a property owner wants to go look at that information, the banks, if fee appraisers want to look at that information, it's going to be there. If you want to know square footage wise, you can bring it down to square footage wise. So it's getting that information out to the public, because we have that information. There's no reason for us to hold it back. When we have that information, then we can make it available to the public. It's actually makes us more transparent, and it actually reduces the workload on my staff when we have this information that's readily available. And I'm talking, I think it's $4,000 a year to host that information. And then from there, I'll have a link to our specials for any of our properties that do have specials. As we talk about, you can see the amount of specials that are it's West Fargo. That's why. But we'll have that there, and then we will have a full property record card of properties. Go to Ward here. They just updated theirs. So there's Feiston. It's the first one apparently. But you'll be able to pull up a full property record card. Properties have. So let's see, we probably get a couple dozen of these a week in our assessor email, phone calls in for this information. It'll be just right there for people to have. They can go access it. So that'll be coming through on, I believe it's the 18th meeting on the 18th. That'll be for approval. Get that updated. Other than that, for otherwise tools, we use our aerial imagery a lot, just for reference. We use our GIS online, and then we also use ArcGIS internally in-house to run some configurations, calculations. I have reports that I generate that if I want to take a look at an entire and verify the quality or the condition, certain grades, or the condition of a property, I can pull it up, fine-tune it so it color codes and makes it really easy to see, make adjustments that we need to be on that, square footage of property, year built, you stratify information however you can. But our GIS, the GIS aspect of our realm is developing every single year. That's why we've been able to keep staffing down. Because honestly, if Minot were to boom again, let's just say just add another 500 properties, I would start sinking. I wouldn't be able to maintain where we're at. But where I'm at right now, because of technology, we can take that trade-off for having additional staff, spend 10 times less than it would be for an employee on technology, and allow technology and us to benefit from there.
Just rough numbers, I know you
Yeah.
probably don't know, but like the software and everything that you guys use in here, what's it cost a year to maintain it all? I mean, just a rough guess.
30? Yep. When I add Yep, because when I add, we're about 16,000 for our appraisal package there, another 4,000 for the website, our subscriptions for MLS or something like that, and then imagery, our share of the imagery, and then we archive all of our records because we can go back, so we have to keep our property records, so that's a historical document there. So we've, since 2009, I think, we've been archiving in digital copies, and so we do an archive process. So if I wanted to go back and say what your house was assessed at in 2011, I have the property record from 2011 because it may be different than 2024 today. So we have the historical records. So 30,000 is a rough estimate of what we have there. So 30,000 compared to a full-time employee with benefits, that's the trade-off we have. And technology is advancing where we can keep up with that pace too. Like I said, if we had a boom, which I don't develop a lot that are out there right now, and the way things are trending, I don't see that happening right now, but we're able to keep the status quo from where we're at. And it has to do with the appraisal staff I got experienced people. Well, nobody in the office here has less than 11 years of appraisal experience. And we got some with 25 years, so appraisal experience, so yeah. Yeah, in essence, that's what I had. I was going to show you Trinity, basically the complex of our Trinity property, but I know you guys are on time. There's information out there, but that was, when we look at, I mentioned it in our budget meetings last time, that's why we saw the new construction values decrease in the 1 year there, because Trinity because they are a tax exempt entity, prior statutes said that anything that's tax exempt is still taxable until it's occupied, and so there was some pretty big increases in value basically for that new construction. I think I have $330 some million our total valuation of that property out there, but they changed the law last year, it came through, and so it came off the tax. The last year of it came off the tax rules, but ultimately, as Harold mentioned, we try not to put the political aspect into appraisals because everything I do, you see the taxation manuals there. That's all state law. We follow what state law says and does. So if there's changes to state laws, we're going to just make adjustments based off of that. I'm not here to make decisions based off that. If whatever the law tells me to do is what we're going to do. I got attorneys to interpret that. And ultimately, with valuations, I can recommend a value. I can come in and recommend $254,000 property next year to the City Board of Equalization, but you as a board have data or evidence of, say, if a property owner appeal, say maybe I should only be at 240. If they have data and evidence to appeal that, it's ultimately up to you as a board, as elected officials, to set those values. I'm just here to provide you with an opinion and basically our expertise. I'm going to provide you with a lot of data to make a decision, but I'm going to leave it in your court to make that determination. But yeah, that's in a gist. Okay. That's overall what their day-to-day operations here look like. Other than review areas, all the new construction, going out to sales, verifying basically tax exemptions, credits. Chelsea up there, we had a huge increase in our homestead credits last year because the state legislature changed that income level and the amount of the credit value for the properties, and so we went from, I think, just under 500 homestead credits. We're over 800 right now. I'm hoping to hit 1,000. That would be nice to see that. But it's some sort of tax relief in what the state's able to provide. I can't give you tax relief myself because, as you can see, I'm only one part of the equation. I set a value. Taxes are going to be what they are based off of budgets and mill rates. But if I know somebody's over 65 and can qualify for homestead credit, we're going to give them an application. We're going to have them come in if they want. We'll help them fill it out. The worst thing we can say is no, you don't qualify. Best case scenario is you get at minimum, I think it's $1,500 off your tax bill, up to $3,000 or so. Same with our veterans. They come in with a disability rating. We help them fill out that paperwork and get them qualified for the veteran credits too.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Questions?
I don't have any other questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. If something does come up or you do have questions, you guys know where I'm at.
Okay.